You're now listening to the Something Good Podcast Network. Please press any key to continue.
A kiss, as defined by Dan Webster, is something pleasing, a caress, a gentle touch. But there's another kiss that isn't in Webster's.
Hey world, we're Kiss!
Some critics say they don't make music, they just make noise.
Yeah, Kiss sucks!
Kiss implies the extreme in the theatrics on stage, utilizing fire and smoke and bizarre costumes, and the ever-consistent, constant concealment of their true identities.
Speaking of which, Kiss is going to have its own comic book soon.
Take Kiss with you. It's fun. Show your friends and be the first. Now.
Oh my God, no time to turn!
And welcome once again to No Time to Turn, a Kiss Nerd podcast.
Nerds!
As always, I'm joined by Cap and Alex from the Something Good Network.
Yo!
Home of the Something Good For You podcast.
There you go.
The couch potatoes.
Hey, whoa!
All kinds of good happening stuff.
NASA podcast. Hint, hint.
Oh, y'all are still on that?
Oh, yeah. We're still on that.
Oh, we'll see.
We're not letting you go this easy. You're trying to wrap this Kiss
We'll
shit up.
see.
We're not letting you out of the network.
We still got a
that
long
fast.
ways to go with this.
We really do.
We really do. And
This was a fun revisit, too, just because there's a lot of, new things about this. Again, this is when Kiss is, coming into my life,
yeah.
It's funny. As soon as Cap said fun, Russ just darted his eyes over the fuck you said?
No fun here.
Yeah, so we're, tracking the history of Kiss. Obviously, if you've been along with us this far, you know exactly what the drill is. If you are a first-time listener, welcome aboard.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. I'm surprised.
I refrained the entire podcast. I refrained every episode.
Well, this is the episode to do it.
That's why I saved it.
Good job.
Well, I'm surprised our listenership hasn't jumped off at this point. They're probably sitting there going, is that guy even really a Kiss fan?
Honestly, a lot of the feedback I've been seeing between the message boards or comments on our Facebook or Instagram and even personal messages, a lot of people are saying, I'm enjoying revisiting your 80s retrospective. And I think it's because we honestly tried giving the records a fair shake. We tried looking at it as objectively as we could. So I think just for the fact that I think maybe for at least the consensus I was seeing is the fact that we do just kind of speak our minds, but not in a rude way.
Yeah.
And we also don't even adore everything that happened in the 70s. That it's just a refreshing take. That seems to be the consensus. So we appreciate the feedback, guys.
Yeah, thank you. We're just three knuckleheads in North Carolina that like this shit.
But no,
well,
that we
like some of it.
Like some of it.
Oh, the main negative feedback I've seen is some people go, I wish you'd go more in depth with demos and stuff.
Yeah, the thing is...
Which, hey, I can talk about that on this episode.
You can, if you'd like. I just generally try to go in broad strokes, and that's the reason why I don't... There's a certain point where I'm like, I think it's a little too...
We are called a Kiss nerd podcast.
We can't. I could nerd out on some of that stuff, but I made a decision to go more broad stroke with this.
What if we did a demos episode where maybe we kind of figured out a handful of demos that we thought were pretty interesting, bring it to the table and talk about the time eras maybe, what record it was for.
Well, that was kind of the point I'm getting to. It's like I've gotten a couple of messages going, well, what are y'all going to do when you're done? I hope y'all continue to do something, because people, like you said, enjoy it, and we really appreciate it. I had not given any real deep, serious thought as to what to do after, but I've kind of came to the idea that it would be proper to kind of keep this going until they've played their final show.
Ooh, okay.
But I don't know what we could do content-wise, so, that could be an idea. Open the floor to our listeners to make suggestions of their own.
Oh yeah.
But in the meantime, let's get on with where we're at here. We're coming out of the reunion tour and getting ready to go into what is the Circus album cycle.
And before all this, I think it's also important to note that it seems to be everyone's in semi-good spirits by the end of the
how could you
reunion
not
tour.
be? I
It
mean,
was
that
the
reunion
highest
tour was the
grossing-
highest grossing tour of the year and was, it was an unqualified success. We talked about that. I don't think anybody anticipated, by the end of 1997 or whenever that tour ended, for them to go, oh, and by the way, the most successful tour in the world was Kiss.
Right. That just came out of nowhere.
You could argue that by virtue of that success, that Kiss had once again became the biggest band on earth.
Hottest band in the world.
But you know,
so it just, they've repeatedly said that Peter was the MVP of the tour. It seemed like Ace was kind of holding himself together most nights, at least as far as Ace could those nights.
Yeah, I think Ace is one of those characters where it's like when he's sober and on, he's on.
Yeah.
And when he's fucked up and on, he's still on. I mean, he's just he's got that level average. It's like he's never going to be spectacularly great, but he's never going to be shitty, but he's always going to be Ace.
He's had some shitty nights,
It's
though.
just like you've seen him play stinkers, but it's still an Ace flavor of a stinker.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see that too.
But I got reflection here on the reunion tour that kind of has left me with mixed emotions.
Okay.
And, I started thinking about this. So, it's like on one hand, you were excited and happy that the original lineup had gotten back together. It's like, you see your childhood heroes reunited and on the march.
Yes.
And it's like Kiss.
My favorite band that I
Not
never
lowercase
saw.
Kiss, capital letter Kiss.
That's right.
But it's not the same. And let's be honest, it can't be the same because even though it's the same four guys, they're not the same four people they were 18 years prior. As nobody. People grow, they mature, they change, they whatever.
And they're
I'll
not
say at least
22 years old anymore.
I'll say at least on a visual aspect, they tried their best. Like within the Kiss community, there's been some leak kind of footage come out, what I call the Tommy tapes, which is a lot of unedited Second Coming footage, which
that Tommy Thayer filmed.
correct.
Yeah.
And
Hence the Tommy tapes.
Yes. No one else is calling it that, but as soon as I saw that big post of it, I was just like, that's the proper name for all this. He was the filmographer and all of it. But some of it was like backstage footage of them like getting photos done against like the red background. And one of the posters I have up in my bedroom is a 1976 photo session of them against a red background in the Destroyer outfits. Well, they're in the Love Gun outfits, but now they're against a similar red background. And I remember the photos not really capturing it, but Tommy Thayer's angle with his camera back, like kind of behind the photographer recording footage, his angle, the fan in him knew where to place his camera. And for a second, I'm sitting here going, wow, now I feel the excitement that they were feeling.
Yeah.
Like looking at that, I was just like, oh, wow, this really does feel like the old band back together. And everyone was kind of getting along. Just Peter didn't like being filmed.
I don't think Peter likes much of anything, which is fine. And one thing that has happened here is it's created at least a perception of a demand for new merchandise.
Oh, yes.
So the merchandising starts grinding up again, much like it had in the late 70s. The big difference here is now they've figured out, okay, we're going to license. We're not going to be actively or proactively involved in whatever's being manufactured. Bring us an idea. We'll sell you the license. You pay us up front. We get our money, whether you make money or not.
Yep.
It's a smart way to go because we've talked about in previous episodes how much they lost. They generated $250 million in like 2.5 years or something. It's crazy.
Bill said it on that
And
77.
it just where'd the money go? Well, here now they're going to get their money, which is fair and understandable, but there's a lot of really awful stuff that flood the market.
But hey, you know what?
And none of this stuff
guarantee you all three of us at this table contributed to it, though.
Absolutely. I bought, I was super excited when McFarlane did their action figure
The
set.
Alive and...
No, the first set. The
that
very
was
first
the Alive,
set.
wasn't it?
No.
I know what you're talking about now.
The first set came out with each individual member had a letter, and you put the letters together for the logo.
And they had like their superhero
and
costumes.
it was like a superhero kind of. It was
I forgot
very.
that
It
was
was
McFarlane. I thought his first was the Alive.
No,
My
he did
apologies.
that, and then they did
Psycho Circus.
the Psycho Circus set. And then they did that a live set later on.
Got it.
But
the wildest.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the wildest thing I've ever seen licensed out was Kiss air guitar strings for $8.
Yeah, well,
That's
there you
a
go.
reason.
There you go. But here's the question: who and what is Kiss in this current climate? And when I say current, I mean late '90s.
As far as pop culture,
Who is their audience? Who are they trying to appeal to? What position can they assume and drive forward? Because classic rock radio, AOR, is what they album-oriented rock radio. It will still play, at this point in time, they would still play the new material of classic bands. Eventually, even that kind of goes away. But
they'll play like the one song or something.
you know,
like that.
is that who they're going to try to go to? And because, you know, as far as popular standard for quote unquote rock and roll music in that time, it's modern rock.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is what they've come to term in the industry for alternative music, you know. But the hot bands, the bands that are selling 4 million, 5 million, 6 million, 12 million, whatever, no longer is it, we've talked about in the 80s, it was Bon Jovi, you know, White Snake or Motley Crue, whatever.
Yeah.
Now it's the Smashing Pumpkins,
Green Day,
and
Static X.
Well,
more punk rock.
but I'm saying, but
bands.
these alternative, like, is Kiss going to appeal to these fans? Is this who they're, you know?
Not only that, but heavy metal like Slayer and Pantera and
But
stuff
are they?
like that
Yeah,
at
but
this
I don't think
point.
those bands are selling like 4 and 12 million. You know, I'm talking about the big. But nobody's really an arena band at this point. I mean,
grunge was kind of like on its way out as far as hard rock.
yeah, but some of
goes
these bands
too.
that sustained, Pearl Jam sustained, Soundgarden, again, Smashing Pumpkins.
But again, just more like you
But
know,
most of these bands that were coming up were like one and done. It was, you know, and they would sell 1 million copies. They'd have their platinum album, and then they do their sophomore record. Nobody buy it. They get dropped. They were done.
yeah, there was the pattern with like all of those bands.
All of those bands. I mean, it was just, you know, Better Than Ezra, and
That became the cliche of like, I only like their first 2 albums.
even the bands that were opening on the Kiss reunion tour, a band like the Verve Pipe or whatever. I mean, mega selling record, gone.
Yeah,
You know, here today, gone today. So where does Kiss fit into this paradigm? Because somebody somewhere decides they're going to make a new album. But before I want to get there, I've written some notes here, and I hope you'll indulge me, because I
like this.
I kind of gave myself a little bit of a thought exercise, and I'm going to pass the ball to y'all here in a minute. But you know, I started kind of thinking about like what these reunion videos and audio sounds like. There's a lot out there because they had a live feed in every arena. So, you know, virtually every show of that tour is probably available on YouTube in some form or fashion.
I think I have. I mean, I'll have you ask the question, but I think I know what you're getting at, and I have like a couple of thoughts on it too.
Well, I'm just saying, as far as like, they sounded to me in retrospect. Now, again, I talked about when I saw them walking out, my face hurt.
Yeah.
I was smiling the whole time. I had a great time. But looking at it, I'm like, they'd sound even more clumsy and clunky than they had in their heyday. And some of their shows in the heyday were kind of clumsy and clunky sounding.
But that's like that, oh, hey, man, it's rock and roll kind
But
of
it's
thing.
rock and roll. They were going for energy, and it had a fire and a spirit. And that's where I think the disconnect for me is like, it doesn't possess that same fire and spirit because, again, they're not the same people. Now they've had all of everything. They're, you know, the drive that existed, particularly in the early era before they became rich and whatever, you know, the what was the quote? I know what it's like to be famous, but I don't know what it's like to be rich or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, you watch those videos and you can tell they have a hunger and a fire and a drive to them. And by 1979, though, we've talked about how some of those shows are just really bad. And this is still classic era Kiss. So it isn't the makeup, it isn't the costumes, it's the people and what they're bringing to the table. And the word I came up with, and I was thinking about this, was like, I was like, it's almost like they're apathetic, but they're not. It's not apathy. It's complacency. Mm-hmm. And they fall into this complacency straight away on the reunion tour. It was like, once they realized, hey, we're fucking back.
Which only took like a show.
It was easy. It was easy sailing from there on out.
Yeah, they got comfortable.
And they got very comfortable. And they know the audience will accept it, flaws and all. The KISS audience always has. That is my disconnect with the so-called KISS Army, because we talked off mic earlier about the message boards, and like I just my eyes cross reading that stuff sometimes.
I visit them on a daily basis.
Yeah, I have no connection to those people whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think that their taste is awful, and their willingness to buy anything with a KISS logo slapped on it is.
I don't participate, but I still visit it on a daily basis. I've been commenting a little bit more as this leaked footage has been coming out. We're not going to comment on the logistics of it, but from the fan side, it's awesome seeing so much of this coming out.
It's really exciting.
It is.
It absolutely is. And part of that is why I'm talking about this, is because some of that 75, 76 stuff came up, and I'm just watching Peter.
Yeah.
And I'm like, motherfucker, and somebody made a comment on one of these little message boards, and this is where I got sideways. Someone was like, man, Peter was so great. And someone was like, Peter was never great. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. And I know what they're talking about, because their idea of great is fucking Rush or some bullshit like that.
Something a little bit more
it's
tight.
Like no fire, no spontaneity, no, was Peter Criss a technically gifted drummer? Fuck no. But was he a great rock and roll drummer? In that time, absolutely. Was he playing the same thing twice? No.
No, he had a vibe.
But he had a vibe, and he had a manic energy, and it was exciting, and it gave
Grab the
music
bulls by the horns and hold on.
And and we'll see you on the other side.
Ace Frehley too,
but the whole band did, but Peter in particular. And I think that was that's the point I'm getting to, is sort of the hinge pin is, and I think this is true of most any band, is you're only as good as your rhythm section. Because, if you've got a drummer that has a drive and an energy, it's going to pop everything up.
Yes.
And it's almost like he becomes more laconic as and I understand he's, like you said, he was the MVP of that tour. I'm sure he was playing through a lot of pain, through a lot of it. It's not an easy gig, but
you know what? All three of us having studio and producing experience, through those, what I was referring to as the Tommy Thayer tapes being released, some of the coolest footage that got out was, and no, I'm not saying that as in connection to him releasing it, just him as the videographer. Wanted to clarify that before someone grabs that and is like, that's not what I'm saying. But seeing them practice, and Peter doesn't have the triggers on the drums.
Right.
You're hearing his.
Well, you're talking about when they're just in the small practice room.
Yes, and when they're in the small practice room. I think
that sounds better than any of the reunion
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
Because the reunion shows had triggers and stuff too.
Yes, maybe with them kind of saying, Peter's being so lightheaded, we had to add them. Maybe that's part of the reason those drums do feel so flat, is because Peter is a jazz drummer. He relies on certain
jazzy.
Well, not even
jazz.
I wouldn't call him a jazz drummer, but yeah.
But it's like he's got a touch too.
Yeah, he had that swing style, and he's not.
And he relies on the velocity. That's what I'm saying. He relies on certain velocity on that snare hit. Well, if you've got that trigger turned up all the way where it's the same pop noise, no matter what hits, it's going to sound very stilted and stagnant. Yeah. When Peter's not even that style drummer to begin with, which is maybe why that rehearsal footage sounded so cool. Yeah. Is you really heard Peter playing again,
right.
not Peter playing drum noises. So that
what
could be a reason.
But again, it goes back now. They've decided somewhere, hey, now it seems like we should do a new album, which goes into my thought process here. I was going to throw it to you. What if KISS had not reunited, the original KISS? What if it was still Eric and Bruce and they had made Carnival of Souls? What do you think would have happened? Where do you think they would be as we go into, what is this, 1998?
See, Led Zeppelin hasn't had a proper reunion tour or anything like that since the band initially dismantled after John Bonham died, and they're still as cool and relevant today without any of that, but they haven't had to, like Kiss has had to for like reunions and such.
But Kiss isn't Led Zeppelin, and we're talking about lowercase Kiss.
Right.
And there was never a lowercase Led Zeppelin.
But do you think there would be would Kiss be, well, yeah, you're right. I was trying to think of like, thinking of the Kiss mytho. The Kiss myth would be as big as the Led Zeppelin, myth.
Well, that was kind of not as that kind of proves true by the success of the reunion tour. But I'm saying, had the reunion tour not happened and it had remained Eric Singer and Bruce Kulick.
Oh, so the reunion never.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
I thought you were saying the reunion happened, then they go back, because that was what they were initially thinking.
I forgot
because we were going to do
too.
the one tour for the fans, and then we were going to go back to the Bruce and Eric
they actually ever
thing.
Believed that, but
I think they believed it for a short time.
I think they were just, and
the only reason
they were
being,
only hedging
out,
the bet in case the reunion tour wasn't that big of a deal.
They would still continue to be Kiss, Kiss,
lowercase, the lowercase Kiss.
Well,
but that's
the
what I'm saying.
reason
Let's
I say
that
that is because one of our commenters brought up that they actually did a radio tour for Carnival of Souls when it got released.
See, okay.
So I still think for a minute they had that in the back pocket of, okay, after we finish the reunion tour, we'll release this record proper.
Right. Well, I think they had an obligation to the record company to do some level of promotion for that record. But I don't count that as proper promotion.
It's like, not proper, but it's still Gene and Paul showing up talking about a new record and hyping it, and talking about how good the songs are and how much they enjoyed it.
How much excitement and hype can you pump into something when it's just been completely trounced by the reunion of the original band?
Someone posted a link for us, and I actually listened to it, and they're trying their hardest to sell it.
But I'm saying, let's just say that the reunion didn't happen. Okay. Where do you think that would have landed them? Do you think they could have pulled off another arena tour? Because we talked about the final show of the Revenge tour was less than 3,000 people in an arena.
Yeah, I don't know.
And some of those shows were only about 3,000 people. They would have had to have probably wound up in the clubs or opening for a bigger established act. But no one was really touring. Like I said at the beginning of the show, there's not a lot of arena acts by the late 90s.
I think they would have had opening gigs, like you were mentioning, and they would have done more convention tours. The reason I say that is when I was researching, put in air quotes, listening to a lot of reunion tour interviews, just to kind of catch a vibe of everything they were saying and the emotions they were putting out. They were asked a lot about doing more convention tours. So that was something people really enjoyed. So I think they would have released Carnival, maybe it was another Elder situation. They would have released Carnival of Souls, tried to get a tour book, just couldn't get anything together, scrap it, go back and do another convention tour. And maybe through the convention tours, instead of doing acoustic, they actually do live sets too and play new material. I think they would have kept it maybe on that circuit because that was very profitable for them at the time.
Yeah, but the question then is how many times do they think they can go around getting away with that? Because once the novelty of that is done,
then you're playing casinos and stuff like that.
I don't know. I raised that argument for our area, how many Charlotte Kiss conventions did we go to year after year? There was like 5 in a row at one point.
Yeah.
And it was like about every other year.
And they weren't $100 a pop.
No, they weren't, but they still had members show up. But it was still people in the area coming together, enjoying it,
and they're still doing that every year. That's had a healthy little cottage industry.
So to point to that argument,
that's
I think they could have ran it for a while.
You may well be right. I'm just tossing out questions here.
But that's at least my answer.
The old adage is that nature abhors a vacuum. But Kiss isn't your typical AOR radio act. So the question is, are they really something you can bottle up and pull down off the shelf and enjoy at your leisure and I don't know. This is just a question.
Especially teenagers. Can a teenager, enjoy this?
Because
a new Kiss song.
Right, exactly. And
well, they're relying on the parents indoctrinating the kids like mine did.
Because
they would pop up on cartoons and stuff like that too, like a Kablam, like
the Action League now,
but as like a novelty thing.
Because the reason why I asked this is because it seems logic to me, and this is my thought that I had when all of this started to be announced, this new album. Excuse me. It seemed to me the logic would be you don't make a new album because you can't compete against your classic self. It's certainly not Kiss. There's no possible way to win that war. You can't do it. It cannot be done.
Has any band
only because of who they were, again, how vital and important that mythos is. It's a much heightened state for your average Kiss nerd because they're something way more special than the Eagles, right?
Right.
You're not going to make a record that's going to, no matter how good the record may or may not be, it's still not going to be held in the same esteem as your classic stuff. So the smarter money to me would be, all right, let's mothball all this for another 2 or 3 years. Let the demand build back up again, and we'll go out again, and we'll do it all over again.
No, they just kind of went out immediately,
but instead, we get this new album idea.
Well, because it sounds really good on the radio. The new Kiss album with the original four, reunion album.
Does it sound good on the radio? Because again, I mean, here's the question. What audience are they going to try to sell to? MOR? Are they going to sell to or modern rock? I mean, or
you have to do
classic rock? Because
bands like AC/DC are still releasing new records,
right? They're not.
Bands like Motorhead are still releasing,
but they're not selling new records. Is my point.
And they're also not like pumping it like the original lineup or whatever.
And odds are that AC/DC's new album in 1998, when they did what was coming out in that era, my timeline's a little screwed up. They did.
Stiff Upper Lip was like
that stuff got played in rotation on your classic rock radio station. Will Kiss reach that audience? Because again, that's what they're hoping for. Because now they're trying to go, okay, we know we have our fan base. We have the Kiss Army. We know what that is, and we know they're with us. And they're going to buy this regardless if it's good or not.
That now right there, I feel like they think is enough. Because think about Dodger Stadium.
Right.
If every person in that stadium was excited for a new record, and if every one of them bought it, and if those people that showed up and sold out every one of those Coliseum stadiums,
right?
If every one of those people had bought a record, it wouldn't have, just like in the 70s, it would have not mattered if it got radio play. They didn't get radio play in the 70s. They sure as shit didn't get it in the 80s.
Exactly.
Why are they expecting any different now?
So
they're expecting every one of those ticket buyers to buy a record.
They're trying to reach across and create what I call the fair weather fan.
Yeah.
They want to get, because their music at that point isn't in heavy rotation on classic rock radio.
No, you have like rock and roll all night, and that's about it. Maybe
and
lick it up.
They want to get put in the same perception as these classic rock AOR bands. And that includes, we go, oh, yeah, they want to be Led Zeppelin. They want to be The Who. They want to be the Stones. No, they also want to be Foreigner. They also want to be REO Speedwagon. They also want to be Bob Seger, because these are the bands that are out, get played. I mean, those guys made a shit ton of money just on those residuals of radio, which Kiss never did. Kiss made their money on the road the hard way. And we're talking about lowercase Kiss now, because none of that classic era Kiss ever sustained on classic rock radio. I can remember being a kid calling as a teenager, can you play Kiss, and being told no.
You're like, no, goddammit.
No. So
I know you have Detroit Rock City in there.
But conversely, so obviously, and it makes sense on paper, it makes sense in logic to go make a new album.
We sold out all these stadiums, and if at least these people buy it, it'll be some sort of success.
But the question I have is, how good is this album going to be? And this is the question I posed when it first got announced, and I got ripped. Again, going back to the old message boards, right? The old RMAK news group, right? Usenet, right? I'm like, how good do y'all think this is going to be if individually these 4 guys could not release anything of any dubious quality over the previous 18 years because 80s Kiss.
I will still fight you on some of that Ace Frehley solo material.
Ace Frehley solo albums are not good.
I'm agreeing with Russ.
Albums are really not good.
I hadn't even given them a try, but there's a good handful of Ace solo material that's really solid.
There's a handful, but not enough to sustain albums and not enough to sustain a career.
But there's a solid amount.
There's not anything happening. Who thinks that they're going to be able to do this? Well, and then the concept is announced. Psycho Circus. Apparently, this is a Doc McGee idea.
He's
and I'm going to ask another little question, a little thought exercise here in a minute. But I remember thinking at the time how corny an idea this was, because Kiss, to a point, we've talked about even going back to their first album when allegedly they were going to be posed with balloons. They're not clowns.
Yeah.
This is not the circus. This is not a dark carnival.
They've fought that.
They've always fought that. And
now they're just leaning into it.
It's frustrating because they're adopting this analogy now when there's something bigger and better than a mere circus, which goes now to the question, who do you think has served as a better manager for Kiss in the long run? Bill Aucoin or Doc McGee?
Doc McGee's even had more years under his belt at this point, I think, than Bill did. Yeah, because Bill had about maybe, 10, 11 years, roughly?
Yeah.
Yeah, and now
not even that. They fired him in 81, so he came in 73. So
yeah, less than 10 years. Doc's going on over 20 at this point if he started in the mid-90s.
But what has he brought to the table? I mean, here's what I think. And this is, again, not knowing. I don't have access to the whole big picture, but just from a layman's point of view on the outside looking at it, I'm looking and going, well, Bill Aucoin seemed to have a better grasp of what the concept was and what it meant and how to work, how to manipulate
because he
it.
helped form it.
Right. He was a better creative mind than Doc McGee. Doc McGee might be a better business mind, which in turn probably proves to be far more important in the long run.
At least
clearly,
from a financial stance.
From a financial stance.
But not from a
creative point, everything they're going to do from this point on is just hackneyed, in my opinion. I thought that this was a horrible idea. They announced Bruce Fairbairn as a producer, and I'm going, why would you ever get who? Why?
I just know him from Razor's Edge from AC/DC.
We'll talk about that here in a minute. But my first thought was, of course, you were going to get Eddie Kramer or Bob Ezrin. You're going to go back and you're going to make a classic fucking comeback record. This is going to be. It's either going to be all or nothing, and we're going to get
something.
We're going to get something.
Now, I will say, at least because I am the youngest of the table, even though Cap's only got 3-4 years on me, I was still the youngest at the table. I remember distinctly when this album came out because all of a sudden it was in rotation in Mom's car.
Right.
And I know that she had to have gotten it within the week it came out. I remember listening to it and of course we'll get into this part too, but even kind of feeling like this doesn't sound like the other Kiss she's played. But at the same time, the young kid dug the idea of a Psycho Circus. The adult now looks at that and goes, that's pretty dumb.
But your perception of Kiss was very different because, I mean, how old are you?
Younger.
I mean, you wouldn't even have really formed because I have an idea.
I would have been
you had not even really formed your own real taste at that age.
I liked Kiss, though.
Yeah.
I knew I liked that.
Right.
But it's I remember when that came out, and I didn't think the concept of Psycho Circus was weird. I thought it was kind of cool.
Right.
With everything mixed in.
Well,
as I got older, I thought it was goofy.
I think that's what they were trying to sell to these Fairweather fans that never really knew the difference anyway.
Kids, because think about it, they had the comic book tie-in, they had the toys tie-in, and they had a video game.
Right. I don't think that was so much aimed at young kids as the idea of it was aimed at collector. There was a collector market that was burgeoning at the time, and it was more teenage and older. I think they were definitely conscious of the, not the 18 to 34, but maybe a 14 to,
Yeah.
you know.
But I was already drinking the Kool-Aid, so I wanted all of it.
Right.
Mom indoctored me young.
Bruce Fairbairn is going to produce this record. His track record, let's call it that, is impressive from a commercial perspective.
Right.
And I guess he came to prominence producing Loverboy, who were huge in the early 80s.
Like he produced Working for the Weekend and all that.
all the big Loverboy hits.
I mean, that's...
But he also produced Bon Jovi's Slippery When Wet and New Jersey, two gigantonormous, the albums that Kiss were trying to aspire to when they made like Crazy Nights.
Yeah.
So, and then you just said...
so now we have the guy.
AC/DC's Razor's Edge and the big comeback records for Aerosmith.
That's probably what they were looking at the most, the comeback record for Aerosmith, because this is supposed to be their comeback
I think the Bon Jovi
record.
Aerosmith 1-2 punch.
With Desmond Child on board too, right? Let me look up.
He didn't produce, I don't think, on this. He might. I don't think he contributed anything on this record.
And now
maybe that was the missing ingredient,
right?
And I ran across this recently, not doing specific research for Psycho Circus, but just kind of falling down interview rabbit holes. Apparently, Eddie Kramer approached Kiss about doing the record, but someone in the camp wasn't a fan of it because of what happened with Revenge. And Eddie with Revenge, but it wasn't Eddie Kramer, Bob Ezrin, sorry. Bob asked about it, but apparently they were not digging what happened with Revenge, and they both agreed that it was just time just to not do it. But
interesting.
But Bob was interested in doing it. But someone, he didn't specify who, but someone in the Kiss camp was like, no, I think we're not going to do that.
Well,
I have an idea.
I do too, but at the same time, since he didn't name names, I'm not going to name names either.
Right.
I'm not going to put words in his mouth.
He'll pop back up here in a minute, but it just seems to me that either Eddie Kramer or Bob Ezrin have a better idea and a better understanding of the band, what it means, who they are, both as individuals and as personas. Yeah. Meaning that he knows, they know the individuals, as people, but they also understand that the persona exists and what's the best way to present it sonically.
Eddie was my favorite producer of theirs. Everything Eddie Kramer did with them, I enjoyed. Even those like early first album demos that never got like the official release, I think those are better than what showed up on the first record. I think Eddie just really knows the Kiss sound.
I think he's more in league. I think obviously
Bob did great. He made him grand, but Eddie understood the raw.
Right.
Yeah. He's more like an engineer, whereas like Bob Ezrin was like the songwriter.
But again, the question is, I'm going to keep coming back to over and over again as we review this record here. Who's the audience for this? Who's the intended audience? Because it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me here. But it should be noted, while all of this information's coming out, it's Psycho Circus, it's Bruce Fairbairn, but what they're not telling you is that Ace and Peter are not actually going to be on this record.
Yep.
In fact, they're paid a reported sum of $850,000 a piece
to not show up.
To just shh.
Just say you're on it. Just say you're on it.
Just this is like Donald Trump paying off Stormy Daniels.
Hey, we're not getting political.
Or Vince McMahon paying off the intern.
There we go. We'll go there. But yeah,
no, it's not a political thing. I'm just saying it's kind of a. But this is sort of. I mean, it just goes to show that this sort of behavior probably goes on much more widely than we recognize or want to accept.
There's a slush fund, but real. But there's a slush fund that's real. But that's a whole other podcast.
Right. So so this is a reunion album in name only. So lest we forget,
except one song, because in retrospect, but it's like so. And again, I find that interesting.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
The point needs to be made here again, time and time again, that Kiss is not a band; it's a duo.
It's a franchise.
It's a duo, yeah. They're going to be franchising.
To Kiss, how can I take your order? You wanted the best, you got the best. That got him.
Yeah. That was pretty good.
So in their in place of Peter, we get an uncredited Kevin Valentine, who plays on everything except for one track. We'll talk about the one track that all four play on in a minute. Kevin Valentine played for Breathless. We mentioned him. They opened for Kiss on the Dynasty tour.
Yeah.
Played another
drum.
Dynasty.
He also was a member of Donnie Iris and the Cruisers. Now, Donnie Iris had two big hits in the early 80s with a song Aaliyah and Love is Like a Rock. So I think he's the drummer on those. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that he is. Those were huge hits in the early 80s. I can remember those quite clearly.
Also played drums on Take It Off.
Yeah, he was on, and so we know that he's popped up in the Kiss orbit by playing on Hot in the Shade and something on Revenge.
Take It Off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but yeah, he's
I've already got him mixed up.
no, he's already in the camp.
And he
helping
briefly
out.
replaced Fred Coury in Cinderella when Fred Coury left Cinderella, the drummer for Cinderella. But exactly how did they come to decide he's the guy? He's going to make the record. I can't find any information on. It was like, how did they come to choose him and why?
I have speculation with nothing to back it up.
Okay.
I think they probably approached Singer, and he was like, "Fuck you guys," because we know
he was pretty bitter.
He was pretty bitter. So again, I have no proof of that, but just kind of thinking about people's emotions at the time. I bet you they reached out to him, and he was like, "No, kiss my ass."
Yeah.
And then they went to the other guy that they had just most recently worked with because they didn't want to search. They wanted to keep it on the down low.
Right.
So they're just going to go down the list. First Singer? Nope. He said no. Okay, how about that other guy that played on Revenge?
I wonder how much, what's interesting too is I wonder how much he got paid to play on the album versus what Peter got paid to not play on the album.
Right. Yeah, I wonder if
The same for Tommy Thayer, because apparently, allegedly, according to what information I've got, Tommy Thayer is actually the one playing most of the guitar on this.
He plays most of the guitar.
Certainly
Bruce
leads.
is credited with a lot of bass,
Which
oddly
is
enough.
really odd, yeah.
And then the guitar
Bruce Kulick
intro,
is there.
the backwards guitar intro.
Oh
on
yeah, well,
Within,
we knew that. Yeah,
because that was an outtake from Carnival of Souls.
Yeah. So you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, let's jump on in.
First track, title track, Psycho Circus.
Okay. So I first heard this song on the very first Kiss release I ever had, which was the Kiss Symphony, and they have a version of Psycho Circus, and I've never liked that song. Compared to like all the classic stuff that were bookending that was just like that was the one that made me go like that was the skipper, you know?
Yeah. That one for me, I have a love-hate with it, because if I listen to it with like a musician ear, I'm like, God, no, I don't like this. But if I listen back to it as my 7-8-year-old self, listening to it in mom's car as she's like trying to lie to herself that she enjoys the record, I do get that sense of nostalgia from it. So I understand where you guys come from with the 70s records.
You just made a great comment right there. And if your mom might take that personal, I don't know.
No,
but it's very true of
we've discussed it later.
Most Kiss fans. It's pretending you like it. We're going to get to that when I get to my summarization.
No, Mom and I have discussed that later on, because she's talked about later how she was not a fan.
That's important. I'm going to come back to that when we get to the summarization of the whole album.
But from a song, but on a song breakdown, I think there's just, again, to maybe piggyback off your original question of who is this for, I'll ask, who are they trying to fool? Because this song does not sound like
Classic
Ace and
Kiss,
Peter. Yeah. They're billing this as a reunion record, yet this doesn't sound like a reunion song. This really doesn't, because I remember listening to it just feeling like, oh, this must be what a current Kiss sounds like. So even not having a lot of personal background on knowing what Kiss sounded like, even I was able to pick out this sounds different. So I can only imagine fans like you that had been following them for years heard the promises of a reunion record, and this is the song they're pushing? This sounds nothing like a reunion.
Well, going back and listening to this for the first time in a long, long time, I've had no memory whatsoever of this Carnival opening of the song.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was there. That shows how long I probably haven't listened to this since it came out.
No, I've hardly revisited this.
I don't care for the riff so much. It's stock.
I'm surprised you remember that documentary.
That's the only part I remember. I mean, how can you forget that? That's an embarrassment too, but that's a whole nother. I like the big chords under the verse.
Yeah.
Bum, bum, bum. I love that. I think those are really cool. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the anchor of which you can build the song. But of course, it takes a shit at the chorus because that's Paul's MO.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, I do agree the verse riffs are pretty fun because Gene runs off on his own little bass walks and stuff. It still sounds like a modern song, but like you said, it's a good starting point.
And then there's the point, and I don't know if you call this the middle eight or not, but where it does the pullback and he starts singing the soft part, and it's almost like he's trying to sound kind of
and
like...
the song, and the band does the breakdown is on the toms,
and I'm like,
clean guitar.
And it's almost like he's trying to sound like almost... There's a modulation on his vocal too if you hear it, and it's almost like he's trying to sound
echo.
a little sinister or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't have done it that way. I would have let him sing it more of a sensuous kind of croon to give it more of a seductive
or just told
feel,
him to not sing
or not do it. But I'm just saying it just but this is, in my opinion, probably one of the two best tracks on the record, which is
really
is as good as this is
I
as
wouldn't
good
say
as it's gonna get.
I wouldn't say it's in my top two. I think there's two other songs that are better than this.
Well, it's not number one.
Okay.
But man, picking a number one on this was hard.
Yeah, I have one, but it's not this song.
The next song is Within, a leftover song from Carnival of Souls.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, if you have the Gene Simmons box set, there's actually a really interesting part to the demo on this. He edits his own demo, but it works really well. It's the only edit that I was happy he actually made. It starts with a voice memo to himself. So you hear the tape recorder go, and he goes, I wanna live, I wanna live. While a second demo he edits in the background starts that reverse guitar bit. So you hear him like he's probably sitting somewhere where he doesn't even have a guitar, and then he gets the idea for that chorus melody, and he just hums it to himself. Yeah. So that's just a cool little moment if you have the Gene Simmons box set.
Well, this is Gene's Beatles love sneaking in again, particularly in the verse. Then the chorus sort of...
It's kind of just non-memorable.
It's predictable. It's just anticlimactic, which is okay, but it's just anticlimactic.
Yeah.
It just sort of drones, and it's flat.
And it makes sense that it comes from Carnival of Souls.
What did you just say?
What did I say? It's just kind of, you said anticlimactic.
It's boring.
It's boring. It clunks. Yeah. It just sounds like exactly
There's
like it's
no
should
excitement
be like
to this song at all.
Souls.
And this sounds like, again, the question is, who are they trying to sell to? This has that kind of modern rock alternative style that they're trying to emulate.
The moment it has it is after the second chorus. They kind of do that inside you.
Right.
And
that
then
droning,
it breaks.
the Alice in
and then
Chains
that
thing.
heavy guitar,
Yeah.
and then the...
Again, who do they think they're going to sell this to, though?
My friend Terry that's just puts it on the radio and is like, that part's badass.
Exactly. He hit the nail. I wasn't going to go quite that far, but I was thinking it.
But it never got
fully
that
endorse
far.
it.
It never got to the radio. No, I mean, it's a hard sell already before you've even...
It is a hard sell. I will agree with you with that.
Now, knowing, I'll kind of pivot slightly because it maybe ties into this. I do know that part of the writing process on this is Paul was like, we need certain tropes that the old records had. Ace needs a spacey song. Peter needs a ballad. I need our rally song. Do you think this is the direction of Gene needs a demon song?
I gotta be evil, man.
That's a fair question. I don't know, because all of these tropes, none of them work. And I disagree with that they need the tropes. See, the thing of it is those tropes only existed because of how they were writing, organically in the day. They weren't going, oh, Gene needs a demon song, or they, Bob Ezrin thought that while in the process of making Destroyer, but they never thought of it that
God
way.
of Thunder.
Because once you get into once you get back into Rock and Roll Over, there's none of that. You know, there's not a spacey A song. There's not a.
It's back to sucking and fucking.
You know,
for the most part.
They're the kings of the nighttime world, shouting it out loud with the God of Thunder, and now they're making love.
But to the point,
and Plaster Caster.
You know, to try to we'll go to the next song, trying to build a new anthemic.
Well, what did we think of Within in general?
It's boring.
I enjoyed it as a kid a lot.
I don't.
A lot.
Has no appeal to me. I'm like, I don't.
It created a fantasy for me.
Well,
it created a weird atmosphere.
Maybe it would have worked for me, but I just.
Cap's like, I got the atmosphere.
The atmosphere was like after a bad bowl of chili in the toilet. The next song, I Pledge Allegiance to the State of Rock and Roll. Just the title elicits an eye roll.
Yeah.
Okay, before y'all roll into this is one of them I say that's even better than Psycho Circus. Musically, a lot stronger. To me, a stronger vocal chorus. It's actually exciting. And it's one of the few run up the mountain, we're gonna do it, all hands together, let's conquer the world songs that actually kind of works.
Well, there's also like 3 writers on here too. Paul, this guy Curtis Cuomo, whose only claim to fame is working with KISS lowercase, and Holly Knight, who wrote Hide Your Heart. So they had the team for this one.
My question was, when I was listening to it again for the first time, it was like, did we just suddenly switch albums here? Because we went from one vibe in a whole complete opposite direction, and it felt so like left field and out of place. All of a sudden, we're going to do this
uplifting rock anthem.
And this sounds like Poison or something to me. It's not. Again, it's like, I'm not sure what this is trying to be or who it's trying to appeal to. And I don't think they know what it's trying to be or who they're trying to appeal to. So it sits in some sort of weird purgatory between classic Kiss and Paul's penchant for writing montage music.
I think this song and the next one is the most classic Kiss sounding out of the whole record, though. Like, I think if they had led with this song, they might have had a little bit of a better shot, because again, let's break it down from a musical standpoint. Cool little guitar riff, like the intro with the drum intro, like kicking in on that half beat. It's a good Paul vocal. Gene has really cool bass lines. The only thing I can really say that's a negative on it is the lyrics are kind of hokey.
It's the line, I pledge allegiance to the state of rock and roll, could work as a throwaway line in a lyric.
Yeah.
But as a title, as the title and the build the song around is not a good idea. It's not a terrible song, but it's not
flat
great
on its face because of the lyrics.
It's not a terrible song, but it's not great by any means. And if it's not great, then can it still be anything less and still be viable, which is really the question about this entire album. Because in many ways, this album is really going to prove to be the most important record they would ever make. And it isn't. So again, I keep coming back to the question time and time again as each track comes up. Why?
Yeah. I will have to give props where props due, at least on my end. You guys may not. It's one of the few solos I could hum back on this record. So props to Tommy. He wrote a really cool solo on that, because it's when the band does the breaks and he does like those multiple chord bends.
Yeah, I'm not.
It's a cool little segment.
I'm not gonna shit on Tommy for his playing.
I say that as the overarching because we see the sentiment.
The thing about this album is that the playing is fine.
Yeah, that's not an issue here. And they pulled the wool over everyone's eyes, with the exception of this one song. The next song, which I think is the only track that has all 4 playing on it.
Yeah, I think Ace lent his guitar work to maybe the next song on the list, because that sounds like some Ace moves.
This is called Into the Void.
Yeah.
And I want to say
not the next song. Sorry,
I don't know. This is one of the ones that stuck with me on a re-listen, and then was just like, okay, this wasn't the worst thing.
I read somewhere this had a different title, and I meant to write it down. I don't.
Shaking Sharpshooter.
That's so much cool.
No, I don't.
Yeah, Ace on a recent interview said this was the original title for this was Shaken Sharpshooter.
Oh, was he not talking shit?
And apparently the story being that they cut the demo, everything else. Gene pulls him to the side and goes, "We like the music. Why don't you write a space song?" And he said, "Give me an hour." He rewrote the lyrics, went in, did new vocal takes until they got it done.
Well, the opening riff is decent. It kind of calls to mind a bastardization of the riff from Rocket Ride in a weird way.
I hear it.
The verse is a callback to Dark Light.
Oh, wow. I never connected that before. I like that.
But the chorus goes nowhere.
No.
The chorus, but what they're playing underneath, and this is what I picked up on I tried to listen to this album twice, and this one I listened to the second time, and I picked up on what he's playing underneath the chorus. What the playing is cool. I like that. I just the whole into the void and the phrasing of the vocal and stuff doesn't work for me. So I'm curious to know if the original was any better, and I somehow doubt it, but. Because most of Ace's solo output was pretty bad. I know you disagree, but I'm just like, I keep going back to the acorn is spinning.
That's okay. That's like the Kiss fans that go back to Lick It Up every time. They're like, it's a bad band.
I mean, anyway, I'm not talking. This isn't the Ace Frehley podcast. I don't like Ace Frehley solos records. I like 78 solo, but where he went after that, I don't know.
I never cared to go down that rabbit hole either.
I will say, we probably won't discuss it because the song wasn't on Spotify, so I don't know if Cap listened to it much, and I know that since it wasn't on Spotify, you didn't give it a re-listen. I think In Your Face is a better Ace song.
Yeah.
That came out. It was a bonus track for this era for Japan only.
My favorite Ace solo album, or solo song post the Kiss era, not including the 78 album, is probably the song Dolls.
Yeah.
And then there's another one I can't think of the title of right off that was demoed even before he made, in his post Kiss era, and it was
audio video.
No, I can't remember the title of it, but it's pretty okay. It's not great.
But yeah, no, In Your Face was an outtake of Psycho Circus, and it was on the Japanese release along with It's My Life, because they recorded those two songs and it didn't make the record. And you had that bonus CD at one point.
I probably got it somewhere. I probably heard it, which means it left
you better look out because the
left
Ace
no
is
impact
in
on
your
me.
Face.
Ace is in your face.
Gene wrote the lyrics.
No.
But the song musically is so much better.
Well, let's keep this rolling here because we got a lot of ground to cover here.
We are one.
We are one. This album has no clear focus. There's too many lane changes. They're just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks.
They do that on.
It's a good idea lyrically, but musically, this song just meanders. It's mediocre. It's drab. It's dull. There's nothing good about it.
This is my favorite song.
Really?
My favorite on the record.
It's just so dull. It's just what is this? This isn't even a Kiss song.
It's Gene Simmons' love letter to his fans.
I get it,
man,
but it's not a fucking Kiss song.
No, I don't like the song at all.
So,
but I'm watching Alex. Alex is sitting over there, and if he had a tail, it'd be wagging right now.
Yeah,
I can see it. It's just like, let me tell you what I think. Go for it.
Look, I remember listening again. I'm going to refer back to that as the beginning of a lot of this because again, a lot of this does come from the childhood part,
right?
And I remember around this time period is when Mom was getting me face paint and letting me paint my face, and I was practicing all that stuff. So when I'm hearing a nice soft song that really the music on it, the guitar work is really nice.
There's that weird fourth chord.
Exactly. It's a cool little riff. And when I hear, and when Gene's talking about, and I see my face looking back at me, we are one.
I get that.
It connected on a weird way of they succeeded with the new generation. They made the original generation part of it. And then hearing that made me feel like I was now part of it because they were talking about now the young people. I see my face looking back at me. Well, I've been painting my face before I even heard this song, and stuff like that.
You make a good point here that I think also needs to be noted, for as much as I crumb on this stuff, is again, the great thing about music when it's at its best is not only does it speak to you, it can speak for you as well, and that creates a deeper connection. So that means something to you on a personal level.
And also, I was the fat kid. I was bullied in school. So then all of a sudden I hear Gene talking in a soft voice saying, "You are not alone, but how long can you run?" and all this stuff. It hit on a lot of stuff that I felt like I connected to, even at a young age, being the outcast in school when everyone else liked pop music and rap music. Here I was clinging onto this thing that my mom had turned me on to, and now I'm feeling a little bit of that, aloneness. And it's like, now I'm hearing something that validates
cool, and
it.
I can appreciate that.
And I will say, man, when they played this on the cruise, one tear. And it wasn't because they were playing it bad, because they were, but it was one of those, you don't expect that. Kiss is going to play We Are One live. They're going to bury it.
He did that. They did that for you.
They did, man. They knew it meant a lot to me. Now, as soon as fucking Paul busted into that opening riff and Gene started kind of getting people to clap, I was like, oh shit. They're fucking doing this, and everyone in my group turned around. They're like, "Oh God, this song!" And I'm like, "Huh, yeah, fuck this song." And I'm like, "Oh my God, this is great!"
It's that meme where he turns up the dial and he starts crying.
Yes, we are one.
Sorry, I don't know.
The sentiment doesn't follow the rest of the record.
I guess we all couldn't have had an 8-track of AC/DC's High Voltage to plug into when we were 8. But
nope.
That's all right.
So anytime I'm sad, I just put on Black Sabbath.
I will say, man, the song still touches a part of me. It's nostalgia, though. I'm willing to admit that. I could look at it objectively and go, it's not a good Kiss song.
Okay, well, that's, but that makes sense. And like I said, the point I was making is how you got something personal out of it. So,
not the rest of the record, though.
Well, let's keep it rolling here. You wanted the best. You got the best, right?
It's just you wanted the best on the record.
You wanted the best.
Yeah.
This is just so embarrassingly dumb.
So did we get the best though?
Not on this.
I was wanting the best, guys. You told me I wanted the best.
This is
you live a fairy tale.
This is
just a falling star.
Stupid.
Who died to make you king? Just who do you think you are?
But Russ, it's everybody on one song on the reunion.
Everything's gotten way out of hand.
Why
but Russ, your wish is my command.
Well, okay, Gene, never, ever, ever, ever play this song ever again. Okay. My wish is go away. Just go away.
Delete this album.
Delete the last 30 years of this band.
No, again, I thought it was cool as a kid hearing everyone sing, because you never got that before. You never heard all 4 members sing a song.
Right.
But even listening to it younger, I even asked Mom, I was like, where's the song?
Yeah.
There's no song in it. The gimmick is all 4 people having a line.
I don't even know how this made it to Pat. I mean, I'm like, when I hear something like this and I hear, Ace's stuff wasn't good enough or Peter's stuff wasn't good enough, and I'm going, and this was?
I do feel like this is the other song Ace plays on. When I said this and the next song, I forgot that We Are One was between. But this sounds like an Ace solo.
But god damn, it is so goddamn stupid. Why? And like I said, was Peter's stuff so bad that it was worse than that?
Let's take it from a lyric standpoint. So they're trying to talk about the idea, your wish is our command, you wanted the best, you got the best, here we are. Okay, so that's supposed to be the mission statement of the song. The other lyrics in the song don't match up with that. It doesn't. None of what they're singing about matches up with "We are kissing, we are back. You wanted the best, you got the best." It just doesn't make sense. The gimmick is that all 4 people finally sing a song together, and outside of the how long is the song 2.5 minute gimmick, there's nothing else in my book.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a gimmick, and there's nothing earnest about it.
Next track, Raise Your Glasses.
It sounds like it should have been a Toby Keith song.
The opening riff, to me, was oddly reminiscent of It's My Life.
Yeah, which is also a much better song.
A much better. Again, what the great Lost.
And Ace even gets a line in it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. You know, there's It's My Life. There's like multiple versions. There's a version that allegedly exists that has never come out or been released. West Beach claims that he played on it, and he's heard all the ones that have come out, and he goes, none of them are me. I know what I played on it.
The Gene box set one recently.
Yeah,
there's
I don't
one
know.
on that.
That's I don't know.
I'm curious.
Yeah, so it might be, but I'm just saying.
But yeah, there's like three or four versions. There's two or three demos.
It bothers me to know that Gene has thrown this song into the mix multiple times, and it's never made an album.
All the way to 82.
And to me,
it made one album. It made Wendy's album.
Yeah, it was on a Wendy O. Williams record. It's a great song, and to me, it seems like that song should have been on this album and should have been as the lead, and that should have been the foundation that they should have built off of.
Because even that version is cool.
That's a Kiss song through and through. Raise Your Glasses is the closing credits to a
Top
TV
Gun movie.
Yeah. Again, this isn't montage music. This is closing credit music. I'm walking out of the theater. I don't give a goddamn what this song is.
I just watched the new fucking Garth Brooks movie.
And again, it's the problem that Paul now has where every song is a motivational speech.
Yeah.
I shot my arrow at the mark and hit it. We all need to be somebody. We threw it down. You know, it's just like everything is like, you know, we fought the dragon. We slayed the beast.
I made a record and nobody bought it.
Yeah. So it's like,
fuck.
Again, as goofy as it is, Pledge Allegiance is still a much better version of what he's trying to accomplish here. And what are we raising our glasses to?
I don't know, because they don't drink.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The whole thing is just dumb.
Holly Knight is credited as a songwriter too, so I wonder if it's just one of those where it's like she had the song ready and it's like, yeah, we'll use that.
Oh, maybe.
Possibly. I mean, I don't know. We talked about Bob Ezrin not being used, but he finally finds his way on this album with a song called I Finally Found My Way.
Would you look at that?
Which, oh God, everything about this is awful.
Peter's voice is good.
You know what?
This was to give Peter his moment, but it's a weak track.
Written by Paul.
Bob Ezrin
Here,
plays
Paul,
on it. Did
I'm
Bob
gonna write
co-write
this song for you, Peter.
Did Ezrin co-write this?
Yes, he's listed as a co-writer.
So I'm just like,
they're trying to recreate Beth.
Exactly.
So all his ideas, Peter's ideas, are all considered not good. So instead, he's saddled with this maudlin, syrupy, just shit.
Italian diner ballad.
Paul's like, well, I wrote you Hard Luck Woman, so I'm going to write you another song.
He didn't write him Hard Luck Woman. He wrote it for himself, and they gave it to Peter to sing. I think it was probably
then here's the formula again. We're going to do that.
But it doesn't work. They should have given Peter. They should have bucked formula and given Peter a raver to sing, because that's what Peter does really fucking well.
Well, do you agree that Peter needed a song written for him?
No, I don't know, because I don't know what he brought to the table.
Well, if we want to use everyone's solo material as an example.
Well, Ace got a song.
I don't know. Again,
Ace also brought like 6 songs to the table and threatened to like not do the tour if he didn't at least get one song.
No,
Ace really pulled his weight to get into the void on there.
No, that was my impersonation of Peter Criss.
Well, yeah.
Well, I
thought you were also playing devil's advocate. I was like, well, that's because Ace fucking pitched a bitch.
Yeah,
you're right. It could have also been just as bad, because I wrote here on my notes. I said I finally just found my way to just turn the goddamn thing off halfway through.
Hey, I didn't hate it.
It's terrible.
I didn't hate it. I honestly didn't.
I don't hate it either. Is it syrupy and goofy? Yes, but you know what?
It's horrible.
You know what? It is just as bad as it is. This is coming from the same guy that also said he likes Hold Me, Touch Me from the Paul record.
Well,
I like that song too. So there's a part of me that likes this. It's not great. They missed the mark on what they tried to do. But there's a part of it I still kind of like.
I wonder if this song would have been any better if Paul sang it.
Ooh.
You know what? Maybe, because we're nearly at the end of the record, but I will say there's basically an entire record's worth of material they recorded at the same time that just did not make the record. And there's some pretty decent Paul songs on there that kind of hinge on this, not quite as sappy or slow, but like, you know, he's trying to write a little bit more of a ballad, and it works a lot more. So that they recorded almost an entire second album's worth of material that just did not make it in. Still not
I'm
so
sorry,
much.
there you go. I got lost. Dreamin'. I guess the best that can be said about
I'm
this
18.
is it's a poor knockoff of Alice Cooper, and they got sued. And only this is just not a good song.
Did they really?
Yes. So it's
they
important.
settled out of court.
It's important to note, though, because I see this getting batted around a lot. Alice Cooper did not sue Kiss.
Alice didn't sue. It's whoever owned the rights to this.
Whatever label.
Alice had no idea it was even happening.
Yeah. Like Alice is sitting at home going, "Hey, I'm going to buy that new Kiss record. What the hell is this?"
I'm sure he gets letters just like, "Hey, this is happening." He's probably like, "What?"
Yeah, because even Cooper's talked about it later on. He's like, "Once I found out it was happening, like we settled. Like I had no interest in pursuing this. It was the label just going, hey, wait a minute."
Yeah.
He probably didn't get nothing out of it.
Yeah. So when Alice found out later on, he's just like, "Y'all chill, whatever, stop. This is fine. I don't care." He probably looked at the fucking numbers of the sales and went, "Leave it alone, y'all."
This hasn't sold 10 cents in Chinese money.
Let's leave it alone. We're going to be the good guys now.
Final track of the album, Journey of 1,000 Years.
Talk about jumping tracks again.
Yeah, this is like another I'm Gene Simmons and I'm dark.
This could have been a leftover track off of Gene's 78 solo album to me.
Yeah,
I can see that.
By virtue makes it probably my favorite track on this album.
I remember you saying that years ago, but I didn't know if it still held true today.
But that's not really saying anything because this whole album is such a shameful embarrassment. It doesn't take much to have little, this and Into the Void and Psycho Circus are the only three songs. In Psycho Circus, the concept's bad, but there's elements in it that, like I said, I liked. I don't like the chorus or whatever. Into the Void, same thing. I don't like the chorus. This only works for Gene and only in the context of, like I said, it sounded more place on what would be his solo record, but
kind of more.
What I like about it,
you made a good point about it jumping tracks, though. It's like
what I like about it is the callback to the Psycho Circus riff. Did you notice that?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the solo bit in Psycho Circus,
right.
the bum,
right. I didn't notice until you said it, and I just brought it to mind.
Yeah, and then in this song, you've got a string element playing that same riff, so it's a callback. So that's cool. You can tell that there was at least thought put into it.
It's like, let's make it a concept album, but not really a concept album.
It's our nod to the elder.
Yeah.
So my synopsis here is: it's no surprise that Gene and Paul would second guess themselves into an irrelevant and virtually unlistenable album. Everything about this is bad to me. The production, the songwriting, the artwork.
What, you don't like the cool 3D album cover, right?
The artwork. It's just not a Kiss album. Here we're supposed to get the comeback record, and instead we get this. I mean, the cover art's fucking terrible.
The music video.
The video was dumb. But to be fair, again, who's to say it would have been any different with Ace and Peter's active participation? We don't know.
Yeah, according
just
to
because
them,
18 years of what they had done prior wasn't good. Was there a magic formula at play? They never wrote together when they were together in their classic era.
I think, since they have a vibe when it's the four of them, I mean...
That's why I just don't think you expect any of it to be any different, though.
Yeah.
And what I found interesting about the recording process of it all, before we jump into tour dates and what they did for the stage show and everything, is that depending on who you ask, someone was in charge, but it wasn't them. So when you hear Ace and Peter talk, they're like, "Oh, Gene and Paul were control freaks. Nothing we did worked. It was their way or the highway." Now you hear Paul talk about it, and they put a lot of that on Bruce Fairbairn, being like, he was steering the ship. We were following orders. He didn't like the material. So there's a lot of finger pointing on...
That's probably a sizable truth. I'm sure when they go in, they probably have to make an agreement, and it's like somebody has to be the final authority. And when you go in, it's like, okay, we're going to hire this guy as the producer. He's the final authority.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that to be true.
And then, unfortunately, Fairbairn's no longer around to even share his side of the story.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, going back to what you said earlier about your mom pretending to like
telling
it,
herself she liked it, pretending to like it, making
and that's
herself
the
like
point. It's like, this is what I came up with, and I was like, why do we expect this to be any different? Because we wanted to believe. We wanted to believe that they could do this. That's the power the original four had, that mythos that the word you used. They took a very simple concept and turned it into this monolithic legend. It's towering. And like I use this cliche a lot. I'm like, it's so towering that don't fool yourself for a second. You're not standing in its shadow.
Yeah.
Whether you like Kiss or not is irrelevant. That's everything. They changed the game. Just on, you can just go for staging presentation. Okay, that's one small thing. But, they took these basic elements that were already in play and put together a theatrical concept that no one has ever matched and no one's ever superseded. Not even the band themselves.
Nope.
That's how untouchable that was.
Yeah. And the reunion stage was cool, but it still could not live up to their classic stages. I mean, one of the coolest things that they only did on that tour, they've not really brought back. Okay, well, maybe for one, because I don't pay attention to all the Tommy and Eric tours, but they had the pick lifts that went out into the audience. So like on the original Love Gun stage, they would go up with the drum riser where you get the big cat. Well, not only did they go up this time, they went out and into the audience. So it's like, that was really cool even, but it still it didn't match up. And I think part of the reason for it, none of these stages had a Kiss logo.
Yeah, I mean,
think about how important it is that there is
a Kiss logo on the reunion tour.
It was It was
no, they had a logo.
Screens.
No, they had a logo. It was a lit logo, and it was a lot more ornate than any of the previous logos. They had a logo on that.
I'm not doubting you. I'm just saying, but so I'm not doubting you, but to the point being of it's so unnoticeable.
Maybe.
Are you talking about the LED looking one?
Might have been. I don't know if it was LED, but
because I remember there was one similar like that on like the New Year's Rockin' Eve when they played under the Brooklyn Bridge or something.
Yeah, that was the same logo.
Yeah, that's like almost like a light bright.
But they
LED
had that.
Panel.
That was on the backdrop of the stage.
But tell me that. Okay, so I kind of mistook that as a screen.
They took the screen. All of that is.
There's not that big stationary huge Kiss logo with the big bulbs flashing in your face.
And what's ironic was that everyone their critics like to deride that as them taking it to making it pure Vegas. And now every band in the world's done something like that. I was watching a live video of the Cult recently, and at some point their name comes up in lights behind them, and I was just like, where have I seen that before? This album was released on September 22nd, 1998, the day after my birthday.
Nice.
Did you get it for your birthday?
I went down to I was living in Wingate, North Carolina, which is way out on the outskirts of Charlotte. Drove up into Charlotte to a record store and was waiting when the door opened. And I can remember sitting in my car, putting it in, and being greatly disappointed. I knew it was coming. I still had this sense of hope that maybe, just maybe, because I had already heard, Psycho Circus as a single had already came out.
Mm-hmm. So you weren't going in completely blind.
But once we got into like I Pledge Allegiance, I was just like, oh my God. And I drove all the way home listening to that piece of shit. And I think that's probably the last time I ever actually listened to it. I probably gave it a couple of times trying to fool myself into liking it, but it just never connected with me. It debuts at number 3 on Billboard.
Not something to shake a stick at.
Nothing to shake a stick at. That's an excellent debut. However, the very next week it drops to 35.
Everyone in those Coliseums bought that record, and then that was it.
The Kiss Army is what sustains this band. Their fair weather fans aren't going to buy new material. They don't care. They just want to see the spectacle. And Fairweather fans, everybody, when I say Fairweather fans, these are people that bought Kiss Alive or Kiss Alive 2 or maybe Destroyer or maybe Love Gun. And those are the albums that they know.
Yep.
And they're going to have to, and they
every
wisely,
band
they
has
hit
it.
to this point. Every band does. That's what I'm saying. And because by the start of the tour, the night that they start the tour, or they play, we'll get into this, they play Dodger Stadium first.
Yeah.
The album is at number 65 on the charts and will not recover. It does not come up. The tour does nothing to help it.
No.
Much hype is given in advance of this pre-tour about 3D special effects.
And they do this in the music video too.
It's in the music video, but you wouldn't know it if you didn't. You'd have to buy the home video to see it in 3D.
Mm-hmm. So they released a home video that had 2 copies of the video, or the music video rather, on one cassette tape. So you watched it. The first version was the regular, MTV version, we should say.
Yeah.
And then after that, much like their concert, a little screen popped up that says, now put on your 3D glasses. And you put on these included red and blue classic comic book 1940s, 50s, 60s 3D glasses. And then you're watching the same music video with glasses that just really don't do right.
But there's Nickelodeon did that with a cereal campaign where you get 3D glasses if you bought say Kellogg's or whatever.
And then they did have another version where they were white lenses. And with that one, it's a specific technology, and I had fun wearing those glasses just walking around the apartment. So no,
he hung on to those.
I did.
Everything looks 3D.
Okay, so let me explain though. So the way the technology with these specific 3D glasses work, and it's the same ones they implemented in the live show. Red pops out further than a black. So you're looking at it and you're not seeing color differences, but when you look at an actual product, like I'm looking at this flyer here, there's a black background with white text and red accents. The red accents are going to appear as if they're hovering over the black. So think about the colors they specifically use a lot of it. Red, blacks, greens, blues. Those specific colors trigger these lenses and give it that weird 3D effect.
Well, the company that was their in-house video system is called Nocturne. Mm-hmm. They did the reunion tour. They did this tour too. They lobbied heavily to not do this. This idea was presented to them as a fully fleshed out idea, even though it was, and I think again, this is a Doc McGee idea. No clue how you do it.
Yeah.
Just this is what just do it. I'll pay you all the money in the world. Just do it. Mm-hmm. Well, you can't just do it. I think the idea was to have as much of the video stuff to be as 3D as possible, which of course they could not do. So they have to have pre-made, and again, now you have the logistics of distributing the glasses, and it's just this just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. For lack of a better way of saying it, it's a bad idea and it doesn't work. It adds very little to the show.
Yeah.
And I know I remember when the tour was happening, there were people that were talking about, it was just I just threw the glasses away.
Because you never hear about any of that kind of stuff, even today, where it's just
nobody's going, man, you remember that bad?
Yeah, exactly.
Man, and Gene was talking his hype was stuff's going to be popping out from under your seats and blah, 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 blah. And it's just okay, whatever.
Well, they were also saying they were going to have that touring carnival that they had at the Dodger Stadium.
Well, I have that here too. They appear at the Dodger Stadium thing, but they couldn't come to terms, so they only appeared at the one date.
Yep.
But the whole idea is this whole thing was going to be a traveling dark carnival. Right.
And then also, how much the Smashing Pumpkins were paid to play the opening for that Halloween show?
10 cents.
Nope. They wouldn't have made a profit. $0.
Weird.
They did it for free.
I mean, I'm sure I can see.
Well,
I can see
that's a
them
good thing
being nerdy enough to be like,
and they played a stage in the middle of the crowd. They didn't play on the main stage.
Weird. Well, that makes sense because but we'll get to that for a minute. Let's just look at this in terms of some pre-tour logistics. It's a smaller tour in terms of dates. It's only 2 months in the U.S. with an additional month in Europe, total of 62 dates. And I think just over half are in the U.S. It's only 30 some days, 34 days.
They did a decent amount in Mexico on this tour.
We're looking at like the reunion tour was like 160 some dates, and this is only, so it's like far less. It's like a third. The set list is largely unchanged from the reunion tour with just a few new songs added. They added Psycho Circus, Within, interestingly, and Into the Void.
And I Was Made for Loving You started getting a regular
played
rotation.
a few shows, but didn't last.
Right.
Well, that was more or less on the reunion. They tried it a few, but there was a lot of Psycho Circus tour or shows that had I Was Made for Loving You wrapped in.
Did they play Australia on this run?
I think so. Hang on, let me. We'll get to it. Opening night is on Halloween, and the location is Dodger Stadium in L.A. and Smashing Pumpkins opens. Essentially, this is a one-off date because the tour doesn't start for another almost 2 weeks on the East Coast. But this is really more of a press thing, I think, than anything. They want to do the big jump off like they did at Tiger Stadium, but now they're in LA, which is a media town. They've got a major opening band. And the big coup is they've got the Fox network broadcasting 3 songs from it live
to coincide with their Mad TV appearance,
which this whole weekend. This is a big coup for them. They get a kind of a 2-night stand on the Fox network. The TV show Millennium, which comes on immediately after the hit show X-Files, and that they are
the subject
of the show. Which, if I remember right, they're filming a video and there's a mad killer on the set, kind of a thing.
And essentially, it's like the body drops from a noose kind of thing, and then stops the video shoot, and all this stuff. And then members of the band show up as extras outside of makeup.
They play characters. You got to do a little double take to catch them.
Because sometimes they're really great, like Ace and Peter, security guards that just walk by.
Yeah,
Paul is like some random guy.
He's a director that gets killed at the beginning. And what's funny is the first time I watched it, it didn't even register me that it was Paul. It was just like, how did I miss that?
Yeah,
the episode is actually pretty clever. There's some funny lines in it. It's
a lot of it's
campy, but it's campy in a clever way as opposed to a bad way. They did a good job with the episode. It's fun to watch if you can find it. That was a good show anyway, I thought. And
I'm sure it's streaming somewhere.
I'm sure you can find it. The next night they show up on Mad TV, which was running opposite of Saturday Night Live.
Where they fight Michael Jackson.
And they famously fight Michael Jackson.
Honestly, that has to be one of my favorite TV Kiss things is the Mad TV appearance. I think every bit they did on there was great. The beating up Michael Jackson, the live action figures, and
you've got full grown action figures.
And you've got like Paul walking over and crushing the tank. He's like, my action figure. And then the mom stealing Paul at the end of the night,
like he's a love doll.
And Gene drooling on the kid, and then like even the extra bits of like I forget. I think it was the family that Will Sasso was part of. The daughter was coming down the steps getting ready for prom, and he's like, who are you taking to prom? And she's like, Kisses. He goes, wait, all 4 of you are taking you to the prom? And Gene's like, don't wait up. He's like, no, I'm not having this. And then the grandma walks down. She's like, Polly, Jeannie. And then it's the whole thing of like, I hadn't seen you since 1875. And then, of course, Grandma walks out with them, too.
They do a bit on Family Guy that's kind of like that, too.
And then to wrap it up, something that even maybe connects with Russ a little bit, because I know that you're a Peanuts fan, they do a callback to It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. You've got all 4 of them during the credits running. You've got all 4 with their jack-o'-lantern trick-or-treat bags. And they're going through, it's like, I got a peppermint, schlotz.
Peter gets a rock.
Yeah, Peter gets a rock, and then he bites it, and he's like, but I love rocks. And it's like, everyone seemed to have been enjoying themselves. And with them not getting any footage on Saturday Night Live, very little coverage on MTV with Headbangers Ball, it was cool to see them on a very popular show at the time and actually killing it. It was really fun for me, at least.
And they looked like they had fun on that one too.
It was interesting to see that they even got to broadcast the live feed, for the first 3 songs. That was kind of a surprise to me. That's the bigger coup.
Wasn't Mad TV also on Fox?
Yeah,
all of this was on the Fox network.
It was like the KISS network for the weekend.
This show was also broadcast live over the internet, which may be a first for the band. I don't know. I don't know where it was broadcast, and it was also broadcast over the radio, but I can't find any info on how many stations carried it.
I think K-Rock and a few others.
Here's what isn't widely reported. The ticket sales for this show were very sluggish, and the promoter, which was Avalon Attractions, were forced to sell a 2-for-1 promotion to help try to fill it up. And they do okay. It ultimately draws 32,000 people, which is an impressive number, even if it's not a sellout. It's still, and it's not the 40,000, but you've come up 8,000 shy. But a lot of this though was papered. What they call papered.
Yeah.
There was a lot of giveaways, and then the tour begins, like I said, nearly 2 weeks later when it finally starts on November 12th in Boston. Sold out show. A lot of these shows are sellouts. I did not know this. In my research, I was kind of surprised to find this because I thought this tour wasn't very successful because it was so short. Mm-hmm. They do this weird 2-night stand in the New York City area with the band playing at the East Rutherford Brendan Byrne Arena. I don't even know if they call it that anymore. I'm sure it's got a new corporate name. I'm sure it's Kentucky Fried Chicken or something. But it's the Crypto Arena. But it's on the 22nd, and then they play Madison Square Garden on the 23rd. And you got to note that these 2 arenas are literally across the river from one another. They're not 10 miles apart.
Yeah, even though one says New Jersey, one says New York, they're not that far away.
And both shows are sellouts. It's not the 5-night stand at MSG that they had done 18 months prior, but it's still an impressive achievement.
You got all the guys that didn't go to the last tour, probably on this run.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's just so weird that it's like, wonder why. Something must have been happening at MSG. They couldn't get multiple nights is the only thing I can figure.
Maybe.
I mean, that's got to be.
Yeah, because they still play a lot around the area, like Uniondale, Rochester, Buffalo. So they're still playing a lot around the New York area.
Most of these shows are in the Northeast, and most of these shows are still east of the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
December 3rd, the group, I guess they're in Toronto, filming the concert segment for the forthcoming Detroit Rock City movie. We'll talk a little bit at length about that on the next episode.
Yes.
But they are using a replica of the original Love Gun stage and the costumes from the Love Gun era, as the movie is set in 1978. December 15th, Columbus, Ohio, sold out show, but for reasons unknown, Peter doesn't sing anything other than Beth, including Black Diamond. Paul does all the vocals on Black Diamond, and apparently he doesn't sing backup or anything. So he may have been sick. That would be my first.
December 5th.
Yeah. December 12th. I never say this right. Terre Haute, Indiana. Terre Haute. I don't even know if that's how you pronounce it. Terre Haute. This show is recorded for a limited 6-song bonus CD that will be added to the European release of Psycho Circus. So they're in the stronghold of Indiana, one of their Midwest strongholds. They also record additional material in Indianapolis the next night, December 13th. I'm just picking stuff off to kind of get this. We're running a little long here. Am I missing anything that?
Not anything of big note. I would just say kind of the overall opinions, though, of this tour are a little bit more lacking when you read the reviews, when you read the fan reactions. We've got a lot of these sold out shows, but a lot of people are kind of reporting that, maybe Peter doesn't play that well or Ace is a little sloppy. Well, again, with this job I have, the thing I've got for entertainment is I'll just put on, a live show and just listen to it. So I've been listening to a lot of Psycho Circus shows, just kind of getting a vibe for the band. And honestly, yeah, there's some nights where Peter misses a cue. Like he doesn't play, I Was Made for Loving You until the do part. Like he was just, doing kick the entire time. He wasn't actually playing. So yeah, there were some off nights, but Paul consistently was doing really weird stuff vocally, especially on 100,000 Years. That's already a song where you've kind of got a little bit of that, offbeat vocal thing anyway, but he was playing it up hard, which then was making it hard for Ace to come back in with like his bendy bits, or Peter to come in proper with the drum roll. So they may have not been doing great, but at the same time, Paul was doing some weird stuff on vocal, and no one seems to talk about that one, but it's way off. It kind of leads into what you were saying about how there's a difference between 90s Paul vocal and 70s Paul vocal.
And I like the 70s Paul vocal better. It's like once he got some sort of training or some idea, he became very enamored with his own voice.
And that's what this song does. 100,000 Years, he's doing a whole bunch of that.
Well, see, now our good friend Jeff Williams made a one very what's the word? It was interesting. He goes, it got to be where the singers in the 90s and 2000s got to be like guitar players in the 80s, where they felt like they had to hit every note in the scale.
Oh, that is good.
And I was like, yeah, no, that's really, and that's Paul falls right into that. It's like, there it's like, whoa, they got to hit every fucking note in the scale. It's just like, God damn it. December 31st, the Palace of Auburn Hills in Detroit is sold out. However, this show was originally scheduled for the Pontiac Silverdome. But even still, Detroit loves them some Kiss, always has.
Yep. Probably sold out, right?
And yeah, that's what I said.
Okay.
It was sold out. But again, it was I think had hoped to get the Silverdome.
Right.
The final U.S. date of the Psycho Circus tour is January 2nd, 1999, Nashville. There are only 34 dates, almost all east of the Mississippi River, primarily in the Northeast, like we just said. And although not all shows are sellouts, attendance is still strong, so it would seem they would have had no trouble securing additional dates. So who knows? I don't know why this was so short. European tour begins February 28th in Finland, and in the downtime, Paul had knee surgery and wears a brace for this tour.
It's also an interesting note, though. January 31st, though, they played the Super Bowl.
Oh, was that on this?
January 99.
Yeah, well, they didn't really play the Super Bowl.
They played the halftime show.
No, they didn't play the halftime show. They played the pre-show.
Oh, I thought they actually played a halftime show.
is the.
Yeah, I thought that's always what it was.
Spot. No, fuck no. They weren't going to give them that.
No, this was the era of like Janet Jackson.
They just came in and I think didn't they
shows.
lip sync too?
Yeah, it was a lip sync performance.
It was just a pre-show thing that most people probably didn't even see.
A whole bunch of cheerleaders out there dancing along to Rock and Roll All Night.
Which, I mean, that's cool. But my whole thing is that's a failure for Doc McGee to be like, you know what? If you're not giving us the halftime spot, we're not interested. That's the way they should have played that.
Yeah, fair point.
But it's like, were they really so desperate for media attention that they were going to play that? Were they going to whore themselves out like that? Well, yeah.
Well, I think that may have been the shift of them trying to reach a new audience, because I've talked about it before that a lot of that meet and greet audience are bankers, are fair weather fans.
That's the whole point of this whole era to me, is like they're trying to transcend past the Kiss Army, which they'll never ever do. We know, but
because they know those sports fans have money.
Yeah, but to this day they still do the same thing. Let's see. Russian dates were scheduled and then canceled after an international incident in Kosovo, and that soured the U.S.-Russian diplomatic relations. Tour headed for South America in April for 3 dates. Interesting to note, the opening act is Rammstein.
Okay.
Who themselves are now known for their impressive pyrotechnic shows.
I mean, on paper, that sounds like it should be, awesome, or at least draw.
The final date is in Mexico City on April 24th. In hindsight, this Psycho Circus tour was relatively successful, but it was a far shorter run than the reunion tour, which was, like I said, it was like the reunion tour was nearly 3 times longer.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they did not do more dates in the U.S. And like I said, it seems like they wouldn't have had any trouble, getting promoters interested.
Yeah, especially considering how successful it was. You think they moved too fast?
I don't know. This album wasn't successful. It disappeared without much notice.
Yeah.
But the media presence was strong throughout. There's a lot out there, and would continue to be strong. That's one thing they were able to do, was finally kind of court the media. I mean, I think that came in the wake of the success of the reunion tour, and I think the media wanted to catch up.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they started to create this symbiotic kind of relationship with the media that they had not previously enjoyed.
Yeah, because everything they do after this tour, because I just went ahead and double checked just the rest of the dates, everything they play for the rest of 99 is a media thing.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into on the next episode because it'll play into the farewell tour. But no, everything they play for the rest of this year is used for some sort of promotional tactic.
So all is not well in the Kiss camp.
Well, yeah, that we'll see. I don't know.
I have an interesting wrap up, and I didn't think about this until this afternoon. The band wanted another Destroyer with a successful tour, everything else. But you know what they got?
Psycho Circus.
They got another Dynasty.
Yeah.
They got another Dynasty. A failed tour with expectations that did not meet standards. An album that said had Ace and Peter on it, but it did not. Where maybe only Peter played on one song on Dynasty. Same thing on this record.
Right.
There was fractions within the band.
History
Peter not
repeating itself.
Yep, but not the history they wanted. They tried to pick up in 74, but guess what? They genuinely did pick up at Love Gun. Because the next move they make is Dynasty. And that's what they got with this.
And it's to say maybe that band had its moment. And that there needs to be a point where you recognize it and you walk away. Perhaps that's what they're thinking as they move into this next cycle, which is, of course, the first farewell tour.
Yeah.
Which we will talk about at length.
Because you didn't catch this tour, did you? There wasn't anything close enough. I think West Virginia was the closest they got around here.
I didn't go see the Psycho Circus tour. I'm not sure I would have. I don't know.
Even if there was a Charlotte date?
Well, I didn't. Yeah, I just remember thinking that it was a bad idea for them to run back out so quick. But
it's interesting they didn't do any North or South Carolina dates on that tour.
Well, they didn't do hardly. I don't think they did anything in the South. Like I said, it was primarily Northeast and primarily east of the Mississippi. They did no West Coast dates either. It was really kind of weird how quick it kind of came and went.
Especially if the dates were selling well.
Yeah. So I don't know. I've not found
Doc, explain yourself.
Yeah, I've not found any information on that. And there's probably somebody sitting here listening going, I know.
Maybe it's because the technology of the tour was so crap. Then that was what they were kind of hinging it on. Yeah,
it's hard to say. That's the only thing I remember about hearing about from the tour was like the 3D thing was like completely inconsequential. It was like they'd hyped it and it was like, big deal, so what? Right. But, they have one last card to play, which they're going to play, and we'll talk about that on the next episode of No Time to Turn. So hopefully you guys will join us. So for Cap and for Alex, I'm Russ, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good.
Thank you for listening. Please insert another coin by supporting the show for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/somethinggoodnetwork.